Hello everyone and welcome back to Arctic Retro, the retro computer channel from above the Arctic Circle. In this video I will take a look at this Amiga 1200 that I have on my bench today. It's been a while since I had an Amiga on this channel, but now I got this Amiga A1200 HD and it looks to be in a nice condition. The case is already opened, as you can see, and yeah, it's a little bit dirty, but I'm gonna take care of that, of course. The case is not yellowed at all, and that's a good thing. I don't have to deal with that. It is a Norwegian keyboard, as you can see by these Norwegian letters Ø, Æ, Å. I've had this Amiga standing here on my shelf for a while, but it's not actually mine. It belongs to Kjell Ove from Commodore Retro Innovations. He has a channel on YouTube himself, and you should check it out. The backsides looks okay, nothing wrong there, nothing broken, nothing missing. The underside is a little bit scruffy, and as usual it's missing the cover for the memory expansion. The Amiga 1200 was the last of the home computers from Commodore, and it was released in 1992. And it uses the more modern 32-bit architecture with the Motorola 68EC020 processor and also the AGA chipset. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. PCBWay produces very good quality PCBs at affordable prices. Besides that, they also do services like CNC machining, 3D printing, PCB assembly and advanced PCB. If you are in the need of an already made PCB design, go visit their shared project sites where you can find a lot of high quality PCB designs. Check out PCBWay.com. And right now they are running their 4th PCB design contest with great prizes, and all the participants get an ESP32 development board. I actually don't know the status of this particular computer. I don't know if it's working or not. I haven't turned it on, so yeah, we'll see about that. But first let's take a look inside. The keyboard is of course dirty inside, full of dust and stuff, and yeah, the motherboard, a lot of dust. A little bit of rust on the RF modulator shield, so yeah, we have to take a look at that. And yeah, there's the hard drive. The hard drive is currently disconnected because I used this very short ribbon cable for another machine for a while, but now it's going back here. But without further ado, let's power this up and see if it works or not. And I got this RGB to SCART cable for Amigas. Let's power it on. Alright, yes, it's working. It's running Kickstart ROM 3.0. But now with the hard drive disconnected, it won't of course boot. So I'm gonna attach the ribbon cable again and see if it boots. This is the shortest IDE cable I have ever seen. So the disk spins at least. But it didn't boot from it, so something's not right about that. How about the floppy drive? Let's check it out. No action there, so that's a problem that needs to be addressed. The floppy disk drive isn't ticking, which it usually does, so That might indicate that it doesn't have power, or that it's broken. Alright, that was the initial inspection. Machine's looking good, but has some issues, obviously. My plan for this machine, of course, is to get it to work and also do the restoration work and do the recapping of the motherboard. I'm gonna start disassembling the whole machine and clean up the case and the keyboard. Then afterwards we'll see about the motherboard, cleaning that. And of course the keyboard needs a good scrubbing. The keyboard has this thin plastic ribbon cable. So I'm just gonna pull it off. Yeah, remove the floppy drive. As you might have noticed, the shield on the top of the motherboard is missing. And obviously some of the screws are missing. This motherboard is loose. Alright, that's it. Oh, take a look at this. The shield has some corrosion. As you can see, here's rust and more rust here, and yeah, rust stains. Some liquid has been here. Alright, I'm gonna remove the metal shield, and it's screwed to the motherboard with all these nuts. And the mount for the hard drive is just to pull straight up. Alright, that's it. The motherboard is free, and yeah, look at this. One of the joystick ports is just a little daughter board. I took a brief check now, and the motherboard looks to be in very good shape. Nothing nasty going on besides dust and yeah, the little rust on the RF modulator shield and some of the metal casing for the contacts. So this is the A1200, and here we can see the Amiga Kickstart ROMs chips, ROM 0 and ROM 1. Over here is the little small Motorola MC68 EC020 CPU. So that's the power horse, but it's the smallest one. Okay, the thing is in bits, and now I'm just gonna take the case and give it a good cleaning in some hot soapy water, and after that I'm gonna take the motherboard down to the garage and blow it free of dust. The case parts came out really nice after cleaning, and baking soda actually did wonders. Even on the metal shield I used baking soda here, and it removed the rust, and the rust stains that were inside the bottom case was also removed by using baking soda. Since the trapdoor is missing, I actually went ahead and printed one. This one, I found it on the Thingiverse site. Let's see if it fits. A little tight fit, but yeah, that's really nice. Perfect. Next up is cleaning the keyboard, and I'm gonna remove all the keycaps just to get them cleaned very well and clean under the keycaps. These keycaps are pretty hard to get off by hand, so yeah, and they have a spring, so I'm just gonna use this cheap key puller tool that I found on eBay. And the challenge, of course, is to not lose any of the springs because they can fly away.
Escape the real world.
Some of the larger keys have metal supports inside, so be careful not to pull too hard or you will risk ripping out the metal bar. That was a little bit too much, but yeah, it survived. And the metal bar, you just push it out from the plastic holder.
Escape the real world.
The spacebar has 3 springs and 2 of them are smaller, so you might keep them separate. Alright, that was the keys, and this revealed a lot of dirt, so this needs to be cleaned with a vacuum cleaner. Many of the springs have some rust. I don't know if you can see this, but there's rust on this one and several of the other springs. So I'm gonna soak those in some vinegar, and I have this cleaning vinegar, not food vinegar. This is 35% vinegar and it's quite strong, and I'll leave the springs in the soak for a couple of hours, I think. The keycaps are quite dirty, so I'm gonna clean them in some regular dishwashing soap, hot water. The back of the keyboard has a few rust stains here and there. There's one, and over here. So I'm gonna scrape that off and try to cover up with some paint. That doesn't look too bad, almost the same color as well. The keyboard is now clean and all the keys are dried and the springs are here, and I'm gonna spray a little bit of WD-40 onto the springs just to protect them from additional rust. Just do like that. Time to assemble the keyboard. This is the fun part. Try to not double the springs so that you end up missing one. Yay! The keyboard is completely restored and looking mighty fine. One thing I could have done was to remove the backplate and expose the PCB inside, but I chosen not to do that because I think this keyboard is working just fine. It is time to do a little work on the motherboard itself, and it is looking fairly okay. There are some things like this rust here, and I'm gonna clean all over the PCB with some isopropanol, so I'll start with that first. The backside of the board is quite perfect because it has been shielded, sitting inside its metal shield, and yeah, there's nothing to do here. I think that's enough with the cleaning. I'm gonna spray the contacts with some contact cleaner electro spray. And the two corroded shields, I'm gonna put in some vinegar. This copper shield here had some corrosion there, some blue stuff, but it went away straight away, so just after a few seconds. The cover for the RF modulator didn't respond very well to the vinegar, so I need to sand it down a bit, perhaps that will help. Yeah, that seemed to do the trick. Alright, now comes the perhaps most challenging part of this restoration, and that is the recapping of the electrolyte capacitors, which I got here. And the reason it's challenging is because there's a lot of surface-mounted capacitors. These cans here, and they can be a bit challenging to remove and solder on. I got this capacitor pack for the A1200, which I got from amigastore.eu, I think. So while it maybe is not necessary to replace the caps now, at least these surface-mounted ones are known to be starting leaking after some years, and I can't see any leakage now, but it can be hidden underneath them, of course. So I'm gonna give it a go, because what's done is done, and then you don't have to think about it for at least 20 years. What can be extra challenging is that there might be a little space to solder on the new caps. Like, for example, this one is very close to this connector, so it might be difficult to get the solder tip in between there, but I have done it before on Amiga 600 and it went okay. What I like to do before I start recapping is to draw out a map of all the caps and the values and the polarity, so that I'm sure I'm not doing the wrong thing here. And I checked all the caps and they are the same values, so it's the correct kit at least. I'll start then with the large capacitors here and take them out first. This one is a little bit in the way, so just remove those, and then I start by removing all the SMD caps. I'm not going to show the whole thing because that will be boring, but I'm going to show a couple of the caps at least. That did not go very well. Solder didn't melt properly, so I'm gonna crank up the heat a bit and maybe add some fresh solder. There's a large ground plane here that steals all the heat. Yeah, a little bit better. Okay, now it's loose, I think. Yeah, nice. That was the 4 big ones, and now I'm gonna clean up the pads a little bit before soldering in new. But first we're gonna tackle these surface mounted ones, and they are a bit challenging because it's very easy to lift the pads if you use force on them. So there are several methods. You can use heat gun with air, and you can of course use soldering iron and try to just lift them on each side, or you can just twist them around. But I will try the heat gun method now. Actually, I changed my mind a bit. I'm thinking that the heat gun might be a little bit too heavy for this board, because there's a lot of small components near the capacitors, and it's a pretty lousy heat gun that I have, so I don't think the temperature control on it is very good. So I'm gonna use the other method, which is just using the soldering iron on the legs gently. I'll just apply a little bit of flux first, so that might help. The thing is to be very careful with how much force you apply, and I'm not gonna bend them up like this, I'm gonna twist them. So let's see if we can touch this pad. And of course it's a bit difficult with the camera right in my face. So I think it's loose there. That's it. I think that went well. It was a little bit fiddly, but looks all right. Let's try one more. It's a little bit risky business this, because if you lift the pad then you are in trouble, but you can always repair it. Before you apply any force, you should be pretty sure that all the solder has melted. And the legs of the capacitors, they go far into under the side of under the capacitor, so it's not just the tip that is soldered on. Alright, that one actually lifted a little bit, but I think it's okay. Alright, just so that I have tried it, I'm gonna use this heat gun after all for a couple of the capacitors. It's a cheap thing I got from China on eBay. And yeah, let's see how it goes. So I have masked the area with some Kapton tape, and the thing with using hot air is that if you heat the capacitor too much, it can explode, so we'll hopefully not see that. So it's loose on the one side. Let's see if I can transfer some heat under the plastic. Alright, that's it. Came loose and didn't explode. Actually, at first when they came off, I was a little bit worried that I have lifted the traces because it was so clean. But I measured it's just that it's a very clean lift of the solder, not the pad. So now I actually got the hang of it, and I actually easily just used my soldering iron and just slid the cap away from the pads. However, this one is a bit trickier, and I don't want to melt this contact, so it's a bit hard to get in between here without melting the plastics. And yeah, let's see. Oops, Kapton tape melted, so so just push it out of the pad like that, and then the other side, and I'm in a terrible position, so melting a little bit plastic on the capacitor, but that's okay. Alright, it's loose. Nice. That was the last one. Alright, I think that went well. As far as I can see, there is no lifted traces. There is maybe a little small tiny bit of one trace that came off, but that is not a problem. So this is how it should look when you take it off, and it went well. Now I just clean up the pads. I use a little bit flux on them first, and then I use this solder wick. So they should be shiny like this. All the pads are looking shiny and fine, so now it's time to start soldering on the new caps. I'm gonna start with small SMD caps, and yeah, just apply a little bit of flux first onto the pads, and then I'm gonna tin the pads. Just a little bit of solder onto the pads. And now it's just a matter of trying to melt the solder without damaging the capacitor, and making it straight and not burn my fingers. Okay, that was one side, and then the other side. Okay, I think that's it. That was it. The SMD capacitors are all in, and I just try to wiggle them a little bit just to make sure they are stuck to the board. I think it looks good. Of course, it's not like when a robot does it, but this is good enough. And the one besides here also went well, so yeah, pleased with that. All that's left is the through hole capacitors. I'm just gonna solder them in quickly. That was all the soldering, and all the electrolytes are now changed, and I think it went pretty smooth, but it's a lot of work, so it's not that easy actually. Next up is the floppy drive, and it seems like it didn't work at all. It didn't power up, but I'm not really sure if it was correctly connected. However, I'm gonna clean it anyway, and then we're ready to test afterwards. After blowing away the dust, it isn't that dirty after all, but I'm gonna clean the drive heads and this stepper motor axle. That's quite dirty. So it seems it's turning a lot easier now. When I started, I couldn't turn it with my finger, but now it is turning quite easily, so much better. Then a little bit of lubrication, some silicone grease. Finally, I'm gonna clean the read and write heads with a little isopropanol. Just gently wipe over, turning it around. And also the upper one. And just use the dry side to clean off. All right, that was all the work for the restoration, and oh boy, that was a lot of work. What we do for keeping these old machines like new. So now I'm gonna assemble the whole machine, and then we can start the testing and see if we can make it boot. Alrighty, I have done a little bit of testing now of the machine, and it works just fine. As you can see, it comes up with the boot image. However, there's an issue here, and yeah, it won't boot from floppy disk. And I have connected my GoTech drive, and it just tries to read sector 2 and 3 continuously, and won't boot at all. And also tried another real floppy drive that I know is working, and it refuses to boot. So there's an issue with this. And just to be sure, I have connected this one to an Amiga A1200, and it boots from that just fine. Also, it won't boot from the hard drive, so but that might be the hard drive that is kaput. I don't know, but I got this one. It's a Workbench 3.1 compact flash card with adapter, and I'm gonna connect that one now, see if it works. Okay, let's see. All right, yeah, that works. And that was super quick. That's nice. So now I'm gonna connect the keyboard and the mouse, and we can actually take this machine for a test. Testing the keyboard. Yeah, everything works just fine. Nice. A little demo.
It's going to be a very, very big hit. Insert disk 2.
I connected an external floppy drive and I'm going to test it. It is ticking, so yeah, maybe it's working. Yeah, look at that. So external floppy drive works on this machine. Alright, the machine is coming back together again now, and I think this is it for this video. A great machine. I would really like to have one of these, but unfortunately this is not mine, it's Kjell Ove's. So the machine seems to be working great, except for the internal floppy drive. So there's probably some issue with some CIA chip or some of the logic going between the floppy drive and the chip that's responsible for the CIA functions. So I'm not gonna attempt to repair that. I'm not very familiar with these Amigas with the AGA chipset, and yeah, at least not for now. This was going to be a restoration video, and yeah, the machine is going back to Kjell Ove, and he has more knowledge and the skills required to find out what's wrong with it, so I'll hand it over to him. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for the support if you hit the subscribe and the like buttons below. And a special thanks to my Patreons over at patreon.com. So thanks, bye bye.